Welcome to episode 5 of Dual Boot Diaries, a weekly podcast where two longtime Windows users see if they can use Linux daily. My name is Adam Patrick Murray.
And I'm Will Smith. Each week we go through our experiences of using Linux, with the whole show culminating in us either, deleting Windows or Linux from our computer and moving on with our lives.
Yeah, we've got a lot to cover. We're still early on in this journey. I've been going all in on Ubuntu.
Finally.
And just saying, you know what, I'm going to settle on one distro. You're hopefully more settled in your desktop, but you've got a lot more complicated situation over on your desktop than the laptop. So I got a lot to dig in.
The desktop's a little scary. So yeah, last week I had just installed on the desktop.
Just installed.
I do have to say I got kind of jealous about your distro hopping experiences last week. And so when I was at the office yesterday, I did grab one of those Lenovo's that they were kind enough to send in that shipped with Ubuntu. But I actually got it specifically so I can install a bunch of different desktop environments and try a bunch of different stuff on it. So
yeah, I also do want to point out this is the first time I'm recording on my side on Linux. So I'm in the offices of PCWorld. This is where we also film the Full Nerd podcast talking about PC hardware. Go subscribe over there if you want to follow all the PC building news. But I was like, okay, I'm in on Ubuntu. I've got this ThinkPad P1 Gen7, I think, laptop. I'm not in my normal setup at home, so why don't I just go ahead and try to record on here? Hopefully everything's good. I feel like there's a couple snags, but it's seems to be working.
So the audio is a little hinky. I think you're using a similar, the Big Brother version of the audio interface I use at home. I use a Motu M4, which is a 4-port professional DAC, basically a USB DAC.
Yeah,
which
this
works
is the
really
Motu
well.
M6. So
yeah, so there's multiple kind of multiple interfaces that you can use in the software, and I wasn't sure which one to use. So I just kind of tried different ones until something sounded right.
Yeah.
Science.
So hopefully it sounds right. We'll see. And then easy enough. Luckily, most of the time I'm plugging in these professional Canon SLRs, or not SLRs. That's Jesus. Wow, that dates me a little bit.
You okay?
These
Grandpa?
are mirrorless cameras. Cameras. The latest in technology trends.
Is it a digital SLR, Sonny?
Right. Anyway, the Elgato Cam Link has been a godsend because you just plug the camera right into the USB port, and boom. So looks like the video part of it, if you're working, that seems to be coming in okay.
It's a little USB doohickey, and it turns out one of the lessons I've learned is that USB is pretty good. But I will say, we talked last week a little bit about capture cards, and I got to say, I discovered this week that my AverMedia 4K capture card, which is kind of like the I don't want to say it's the more budget alternative often to kind of the bougier Blackmagic or Elgato cards.
I think of Blackmagic as like professional. They start professional first, and then they kind of trickle down a little bit into consumer. Where Elgato started with hey gamers, we're just like you, we're aiming towards the gamers. But then a lot of professionals actually do use them for certain applications. Like AverMedia, I would say focuses on the gamers for sure. But yeah, offering things that maybe the bigger companies don't, either a price point or, software.
Sick RGB
integration. But it also sounds like Linux support.
Yeah. So I opened up OBS and it just showed up, and I haven't actually taken the time to play a game or anything on it yet in the Linux window, but kind of surprised because the thing I got on the Elgato side is, the internal cards just aren't going to work on Linux. So,
whoops. All right. Well, if you didn't do any gaming on it, then what did you do this past week? What is your homework, man?
Okay, so I've been working on the desktop. I got the desktop basically set up and running the way I want it to do.
Cache,
running KDE Plasma on the desktop. I right-clicked on my taskbar by accident one day, and I found the show panel configuration pane. Which gave me access to a whole world of customizability that I did not know existed in KDE Plasma.
I've watched a number of videos. There's a lot of good YouTube recommendations people have put in the chat after we talked about it last week. Yeah, the sense that I get from KDE, and I've only messed with it just a little bit, is that like, oh, dog, you want to customize? What do you want to customize? The corners, the buttons, the colors, the layout. Like, how, man, the rabbit hole can go deep, like in a way that I mean, obviously not on Macs, but even in Windows, it's like, wow, you can really dig in there.
Yeah, so I started with a Windows 10 style left justified taskbar with a start button equivalent and a system tray, and now I got a floating dock looking thing, and I installed a wallpaper server that pulls wallpaper from the internet.
Wow, that sounds like a great idea.
Well, okay, so pros and cons. I installed. Let's see, it's called. The one I'm using is called Wallhaven, and it's a plugin for KDE. It leads off, the options in the thing are positioning. You got to put an API key in, and then you have a query that you can look for, and then it says, do you want general, do you want anime, or do you want people? So I unchecked anime, and then it says purity. Do you want SFW?
Man, Will Smith hates anime.
I mean, it's well known.
Keep going.
Then it said purity. Do you want SFW, which I assume means San Francisco, wide? Yeah. Sketchy, or NSFW, which is North San Francisco wide. I live north of San Francisco, so I was like, okay, I definitely want. No, I didn't click. I did not click
also,
the not
you live
safe for work
south of
one.
San Francisco.
That's a lie. Look, it's all lies.
Everybody.
So I checked safe for work. I unchecked sketchy, although I was kind of curious about what would come up when I checked sketchy. And the option in the query was just landscape. So I was like, oh, okay, I like landscapes and I like safe for work stuff. Let's get some nice pictures of like I put sci-fi in there. I was like, let's do some science fiction landscapes. And then there immediately were pictures of naked ladies on my screen.
Okay.
So,
okay. Well, yeah, that's, open source.
Yeah.
Open, the glory of the open web will never fail to give you nakedness.
Landscape, it turns out, was referring to the orientation of the image, not the content of the pictures in this case. So,
I mean, you can tag whatever you want, right? I mean, it's the user uploads it and tags whatever they want.
Seems
they're
like
not doing any moderation.
No.
Okay. Also,
and then,
what's the difference between not safe for work and sketchy? Isn't that, I guess?
I think sketchy is like
drawing.
Let's see, I don't know how graphic you want to get here. No, I think sketchy would be like sexy, but no, probably judging by what I've seen so far.
Oh wait, so you did dive into it.
I once I got in far enough, I was like, I got to do the science here. Yeah, always be testing. That's what we say here at PCWorld. So yeah, I loaded it up and I was like, sketchy was like a lot of. Basically, if that kind of gives you the context you're looking for,
okay.
Like think like 50s pinups versus straight up lewds is probably where I would go. So anyway, I'm back to safe for work, and I put science fiction landscapes, and I have a bunch of cool, like, what I wanted was like those 60s NASA drawings of what they thought space stations were going to look like.
Yeah,
and I have 60s science fiction drawings of what spaceships were going to look like, and it rotates every like 60 minutes.
You know, you could just Google it and, get some photos yourself.
Look, I didn't go to all this trouble to install Linux to Google my own damn wallpapers, Adam.
Okay. All right. Wow, that's an interesting journey.
Yeah.
Wait, where did you install this from?
I right-clicked on the desktop and I went to desktop and wallpaper, and then it was like, get new plugins. So it's like, what kind of wallpaper plugins do I need? And it turns out there's a whole lot of really porny wallpaper plugins, and then a couple that aren't so much.
Wait, so these plugins are offered
through KDE.
KDE. Oh.
Okay, just to be clear, they aren't all porny, but I could get like a matrix code rainfall background. I could, instead of having that as my screensaver, I could make that be my wallpaper.
There you go.
Seemed like it was going to be resource intensive.
That's actually what I want.
You can get a game of life that just runs on the background all the time. That seems cool, but also resource intensive.
The board game life?
No. The game of life, like the Conway's game of like the mathematics thing, where like there are rules about. It's like a chaos simulator for PCs. Have you ever seen this? It's a classic computer science demo.
Game of life.
Basically, you start with like black and white tiles, and there are rules about. When the black tiles spread into the white area based on how many tiles are adjacent and stuff like that. Okay. And you get chaotic patterns out of really simple rules.
Yeah. It wasn't my first thought when you said.
No, you were thinking about the board game by Hasbro.
Board game, yeah.
Or Parker Brothers.
Yeah.
Let's see. I did that. I got the Stream Deck working, kind of. I installed BitFocus Companion, which is a open source driver for buttons, basically, in like a production context.
Wait, because Elgato doesn't have official
no Linux driver
support?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
well, but I mean, BitFocus Companion is their partner on the rack-mounted bar strip of buttons that they sell. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah, I actually saw that at Computex for the first time. So yeah, for people who don't know, like Elgato is trying to move into more production-minded focus, and they literally have like, I think it's a 1U or a 2U.
It's a 1U strip of buttons. Yeah.
Like that you can put in a rack at like a production studio, but it's the same thing. It's just buttons, with little LED screens. So I didn't know they partnered with somebody officially to do that, but it works on the normal Stream Deck. Like, because you don't have like the Plus, the one that has like the microphone or anything.
So I have the XL and I have a Stream Deck Plus with the knobs, but the Stream Deck Plus is hooked up to the streaming PC, and the XL is plugged into my main PC.
Okay, so it's just buttons, and is it working or?
It's a little more complicated to set up the buttons, but once I kind of got the metaphor is a little different. Whereas the Stream Deck software is very simple and is like, hey, if you want a task, then you do this, and then pressing the button does this. And if you want to do a bunch of tasks on a button, then you can do that. Or if you want to have toggle between two states, you can do that. But they don't do things like give you granular control over what happens when you press, what happens when you release the button, what happens when you press and hold the button. And BitFocus will do all of that. So like, if I want to adjust the brightness of my lights, for example, I can tap the button once to set a specific scene on my Home Assistant stuff, or I can press and hold, and when I press and hold, it'll step it up in like 5% or whatever increments I set until I release the button when it'll stop raising the brightness of a light.
Huh. Is there a way to import like a profile from the Stream Deck app on Windows?
I assumed that there wasn't, so I didn't even look.
So you just started fresh. Okay.
I just started fresh, yeah.
I mean, how
they have
complicated
plugins
how complicated are the actions that you're trying to do? Like, do you feel like, oh man, there's stuff I want to do in here that I just don't have access to, or do you feel like you have full access?
I think it's more the plugin infrastructure. Like, is there plugin infrastructure for the stuff that I want to do is the big issue. So like, there's a Home Assistant plugin, there's a Twitch plugin, there's an OBS plugin. I haven't looked to see if there's a Discord plugin yet, which is the other big one that I use. Most of the stuff that I do, like all of my home, I used to have separate automations for like different brands of lights and stuff like that, but I ended up just running all of that through Home Assistant because then it's one interface and it's easier to get access to. And that was honestly the big one that I used because like I use that to turn the lights on and off in the office, right? It's like if that's off, then it's kind of without that, it was a real problem using Linux. So that was phase one. Phase two, we'll be adding the Discord and all the other stuff back in.
Okay, yeah, interesting. Yeah, like if you can get to full feature parity, I mean that'd be a win.
So and then I think maybe the ultimate outcome of this is that on the Windows side, I'll probably switch to using BitFocus Companion 2 because I can do the setup in one place and copy it back and forth between OSs. Oh. So then everything's exactly the same in both OSs, which would be nice.
Oh, that would be nice. So, okay, well, you have the Stream Deck. Do you use any other Elgato hardware, like the key light or anything like that?
Yeah, so I have a couple of lights, like the lights that just turned off are all key lights. They're connected to Home Assistant, though. So like, I trigger them by firing a Home Assistant scene, which is like, hey, set all these things to this state, and then you don't have to worry about it from there.
Oh, okay. So really, like the only thing you need to interface with is the Stream Deck, and I guess the capture card thing, but we already talked about how the capture card wasn't. Oh no, but the capture card's in your capture PC.
Yeah, so I have two capture cards. There's a capture card in my main PC that I use when I'm playing games off of a PlayStation or a Switch in the office.
Okay.
And then if I'm streaming that, then that pipes out through the HDMI output on the video card to a capture card on the streaming PC, which is still running Windows. It's like I'm not to a point where I'm doing anything with that yet, although that's probably coming.
Okay. But and then you're controlling all this ultimately. The stream stuff with OBS, and OBS has been good on Linux.
OBS has been rock solid on Linux so far. The streaming machine is running Linux on the other thing. I haven't done a Nextlander stream yet, which is where I stream to the Nextlander guys, to Vinny. And so on Mondays, I often do a co-op game with Brad and Vinny from Nextlander. And when I'm streaming to them, I stream from the machine I'm playing on. just because it's they don't need overlays and all the stuff that's set up on the streaming machine. They just want a clean video feed.
Also, I feel like I just saw a news article about OBS, like an OBS update that's like bringing it even closer to the Windows parity on Linux version.
So I've installed OBS and I've kind of futzed with it a little bit. It seems incredibly similar to OBS on the Windows side. The big differences are how it captures desktops and Windows, which we should actually talk about that because I've been playing games this week on the desktop for the first time in earnest.
Well, and so as of right now, this recording, I'm seeing articles on like 9 to 5 Linux and Phoronix. The Phoronix headline says OBS Studio 32.0 released with plugin manager, NVIDIA RTX improvements, and that was, like I said, a day ago of when we're releasing here. So yeah, it seems like they're doing some serious work over there.
My rule on OBS updates is that I never install point zeros.
yeah, no, that's probably a good idea.
I always just wait for I wait for the 0.1 because usually it comes real fast and it fixes the horrible things that are going to be a big issue.
Okay, all right. Well, what about gaming? Yeah. So
I played some games. I played some Helldivers. I played some Counter-Strike. I played a bunch of indie games, and like the experience was pretty good. The controller more or less just worked. It was using a DualSense.
The PlayStation 5 controller. Okay. Is that wired or wireless?
I use it wired just because I'm sitting right next to the PC. I'll try wireless next week. I haven't actually tried that in ages. But yeah, it worked really well. The one gotcha on the DualSense is that KDE sees the trackpad on the DualSense as a laptop trackpad, and it treats it like a mouse input almost.
Oh, well, that could be a good thing.
It could be a good thing, but in a game that actually uses the trackpad, like PS5 ports, like Helldivers, for example, hitting the trackpad is how you open the map on the DualSense.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I wasn't able to open the map until I figured out how to turn the trackpad off. But it was literally as easy as opening up the trackpad control panel, settings panel, and just unchecking use the trackpad.
In KDE.
In KDE,
the main settings panel.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Huh.
But yeah, everything else works fine. Like Rumble's good. The trigger stuff works in games that support trigger stuff. I was really pleasantly surprised. And like, I gotta say, I've had sporadic problems I tested both Helldivers and Counter-Strike because I've had sporadic problems with dual CCD crash on my CPU on the desktop, the 9950 X3D, and didn't have any problems on Linux so far. I've only played probably 10 hours combined between the two games. So like I might not have seen them yet. It might not have popped up yet.
Well, I mean, yeah. And for those who don't know, like AMD has a disaggregated CPU architecture where there's two separate dies that have CPU cores on them. And so, yeah, there's like Windows, or I guess the operating system needs to schedule like, hey, where are we going to put the cores? And if you're using more than the cores that are in one CCD, it has to go over the connection to the next CCD, and that is relatively
slow,
lower bandwidth, compared to actually just having everything on the same cores. So but it sounds like maybe Linux has better scheduling than Windows.
I'm going to say too soon to say so far, but the early results are promising.
That's interesting. Well, my other question is that how did you actually go through the documentation on Cache to run gaming? Because they have a whole section on like, hey, here's how to make sure Steam is all set up to use the latest version of Proton and additional like downloads and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I followed their guide. I hit the button in the Cache Hello app that says, "Hey, do you want to install the gaming stuff?" And then it runs through a script that installs Steam and Proton and Lutris and Heroic Game Launcher and all the different stuff that's out there.
Okay.
I went down the list of things that they had, but that seemed mostly, from what I've read on that list, most of it seemed like stuff that was done automatically by the script. Or Steam, because like Steam will download the right version of Proton for the games that you're using. I think it seems like it's a little bit more opaque than I would like, if I'm being honest, because I don't know exactly what's going on. But also, it's kind of nice to just press the button and the game launches and it works.
Yeah. So. Well, I mean, the same thing can be said for like the Steam Deck, right? Is that actually you can go in there and pick on a per game basis which version of Proton that it runs with, and sometimes like the default one doesn't run as well as maybe the
a newer
some
version
other
or
version.
whatever.
Yeah, like I feel like I always see Reddit posts of people being like, oh, you know what? Actually, this is the one you want to select. I guess could you quickly explain what this whole Proton thing is? I mean, I think this is one of the defining factors of why Linux is probably taking off recently.
Yeah, so Proton is basically the Valve translation layer. It's a follow-on to, I guess, Wine, which is an old. Wine stands for Wine is not an emulator, but it's a thing that lets you run Windows software on Linux, right? It's a translation layer for Windows APIs to Linux APIs, and Proton is the game-specific fork or variant of that Valve made. Now, people are going to scream at their radios right now because this is a kind of gross oversimplification. But the gist is it's the work that Valve did to get Windows games running on Linux, and it's part of it's all open source, so it's available to everyone, not just Steam Deck users. And it's a little fiddly to set up and configure. There are a bazillion different variants and versions, and like one of the benefits of playing games on a Steam Deck is that Valve goes through the hassle of verifying whether your game will work on Steam with the Steam Deck or not if you submit it as a game developer. And as part of that process, they set, hey, this game works best with this particular version of Proton or whatever. And then the Steam Deck software kind of handles out all that automatically for players, unless you choose to override it, as you were alluding to a minute ago.
Well, so one of the things, people might have seen my face I want to go back to the Wine thing in a second, but one of the things that I was first confused about when I got my Steam Deck is that usually on Steam, you load it up and you'll see like, oh, hey, there's a game update or it's downloading some update kind of thing. But on the Steam Deck, I remember like almost every single time I would turn on the Steam Deck, there would be some sort of like download. Mm-hmm. And what I quickly realized that it's not that the game was patching, is that Steam, because of this Proton stuff, or maybe you can explain it better, is pre-caching some of the shaders. Like instead of the game doing it, the Proton layer is doing it to make it run more efficiently, right?
So the shader caching on the Steam Deck, they run the shader, they generate the shaders themselves and then download them to all the Steam Decks because it's easier.
As in Valve.
Valve, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because like they know the state of that machine, so they can create those shaders off state. On a machine that's like my machine, a bespoke machine, even though it's a relatively standard hardware configuration, that you still have to process the Vulkan shaders yourself when you launch a game.
So you're okay. That was I have yet to try really any gaming on Linux yet. So that was definitely one of my questions. Is like, is that a Linux thing or is that a Steam Deck thing? But it sounds like it's a Steam Deck thing.
Yeah, that's a Steam Deck specific feature. But
interesting.
So yeah, but the TLDR is that I haven't had to go to ProtonDB, which is a community resource for what version of Proton runs best with which games and what settings do you have to flip to get the games to run on Linux with anything I've tried to play so far. Now,
what if you're missing out on performance? But what, don't you have that little piece in your brain that's like, well, if I don't go to SteamDB and don't look to see which one is the most performant, am I missing out on a couple frames?
So see, I have a 5090 and a 9950 X3D, so I never have to worry about performance. It just works.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's like generally speaking, I've been playing games that are either have the green Steam Deck verified checkmark in Steam, which means they work with Proton. They don't have things like anti-cheat or anti-piracy code that's going to run at a kernel level and won't run on Linux, or things that are like the yellow checkmark, which is basically like, it runs, but it doesn't automatically pop up a keyboard when you hit a field that needs text, or maybe the fonts are too small to read on the Steam Deck screen or something like that.
I mean, but like, is that stuff even relevant on a desktop?
No, that's like the yellow. In my experience, the games that work great on the games that are yellow on Steam Deck are sometimes playable and sometimes not so much. Sometimes they also get yellow if they run, but the performance is iffy in places.
I mean, sometimes they get green even if the performance is not great.
Sometimes they get green and then they release an update that makes the performance bad, and then they don't reevaluate it, so it stays green even though the performance is garbage.
Sometimes
anyway,
the performance is garbage from the get-go.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But the point is, the yellow and green stuff has all worked really well because like. If the on-screen keyboard doesn't pop up on my desktop PC with a mouse and keyboard attached to it, I don't care, right?
Right. Or,
Yeah.
or if one, sometimes the yellow one will be like, oh, the text is really small to read.
Fine.
Yeah,
No problem.
It doesn't matter for you.
Yeah.
I guess my other question is like, I mean, I think I already know the answer to this, but when you try to play something that has kernel level anti-cheat that will not work on Linux because Linux doesn't allow for that, but will work on Windows, on Steam Deck, I mean, it just, like, you can hit the button and it just doesn't open. Does the same thing happen on the desktop version, or does it give you at least some sort of error that says, hey, you know what, this just isn't going to run, dude?
So I haven't tried to run it on this yet. I did try to run Fortnite on the Steam Deck one time, and when it failed, it just launched the game. And it was like the anti-cheat didn't run, but the game went ahead and launched, and then it got to the point where it tried to log in and was like, hey man, your anti-cheat's not working, you can't play.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
However, like the anti-cheat thing isn't like, that's a developer choice. That's a publisher choice in a lot of cases, right? Because like there is a version of the anti-cheat that it runs in Fortnite that runs on Linux. Other games use it. Games like Apex Legend use anti-cheat, low-level anti-cheat, and they've chosen to ship a Linux version of that on the for Linux users that they can use. Helldivers uses anti-cheat to keep people from jacking up other people's games. It absolutely runs on Linux because they chose to they include a Linux version of the anti-cheat for Linux users. Yeah. So anyway,
well, hopefully that gets more widespread. I want to go back to the wine thing because you blew my mind for a second. So back when I was a Mac user, I don't like to talk about those days, but I did mess around with wine at the time to try to get some like games running on my Mac.
Yeah, how'd that go?
I mean, whatever, varying levels of success. But so I'm familiar with what wine was, but I had no idea that wine stood for. What was it stand for?
Wine is not an emulator. It's a recursive nym, I think. I can't remember. There's a word for it.
Yeah, well, because the W stands for the thing that it is also like.
Yeah.
Can you even do that?
Yeah, well, GNU started that. GNU Linux started that because GNU stands for GNU is not Unix.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Is this a Linux thing?
This is a nerd thing, Adam.
Oh man.
Yeah, you're in nerd territory now.
Yeah, weird.
What have you been up to this week, man?
Oh, yeah, okay. We can get off the wine.
Oh, no, we can go back to wine.
Well, no, I just like, wine is still a thing, like, because I feel like one of my pieces of homework, which we can get to, but I actually didn't get to, so I need to push it off another week, is people told me to try running Windows native applications in a program called Winboat.
Oh, see, people told me to do wine hold on, Windows apps is the one they told me to use? Are they telling us different things? WinApps is what they told me to use.
WinApps, okay, but this is all wine, right? Like essentially, wine is the translation layer. So a lot of these applications use.
Okay, so like a lot of open source stuff, it's complicated. I don't exactly know. There's Crossover, which is the thing that Proton is based on, but I think that Crossover is based on. Hold on, I'm going to a Wikipedia page now, so I'm going to live fact check this. Wikipedia says Proton was developed by Valve in cooperation with developers from Codeweavers. Codeweavers is a software company that focuses on wine development and sells a proprietary version of wine called Crossover for running with. So it's like the souped up with support version of wine.
Okay, yeah, I remember Codeweavers from back in the day.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, actually, I'm going to put this to the people out there. Please, like, help me understand the translation layer thing, because like. I feel like I understand it to a degree where it's like, okay, there's code that was made for Windows, and we need to have it run on Linux. I guess I don't fully understand like what that means. Like obviously the Proton has been the magic sauce to say, oh, it's just running on Windows, but now it can magically run okay on Linux. Like, I mean, I guess I don't, at the most basic level, I don't understand why code can't run on both. But that's also probably way above my pay grade. So.
Yeah, I mean, the beautiful thing is you kind of don't have to know, right?
Oh, okay.
But
so if it just works, that like that's the glory of Proton, is that it theoretically just works and the performance is good.
Yeah, but so the short version of this is that software, when you write software for Windows, you write it with some assumptions about what services the OS is going to provide in terms of like file access and ability to put paint pictures, paint windows on the screen, and to go full screen, and to take input and stuff like that. And obviously, it gets a lot more complicated than that when you're talking about things like 3D acceleration and all that.
Oh, sure.
But what Wine does, and what these kinds of emulation layers do, that's distinct from, say, running a PS2 game, a PS1 game on a PS3, right? So a PS3 game running on a PS1 is doing hardware translation. So that's saying, okay, this new thing has a much more capable processor, but it's a different processor than the one that was in the first generation of the thing. So we have to translate the actual instructions that go to the CPU rather than, just doing some other stuff. So that's a more complicated, more difficult thing. All Wine does is say, okay, when it asks, we know that on Windows, a file, when it says, hey, I want a file from the file system, here's the call that it uses. And we're going to intercept that and translate that to a Linux call to get a file from the file system, because we know that call is this call. And then they do that for the millions and millions and millions of different ways that the software can interface with the computer.
That seems complicated.
It's like, I don't want that job.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, hats off to, maybe we should call up code weavers and try an interview or something.
I think that kind of stuff is really interesting, but also at the same time, you kind of don't have to know how to do it. Like, you don't have to know how it works, right? It just works for the most part.
Yeah. I guess that's what I'm worried about, is that, like, trying something like Winboat that it's going to break in certain ways, or I'm going to need to know how to set up, configure stuff. I mean, or that maybe that's the great thing about those kind of applications, is that it just works. But I don't know. I haven't tried it out yet.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a future
continues to be
problem.
on my homework. Yeah. I mean, at this point, anytime I still need to do something in Windows, which, spoilers, like I said before, it's mostly Excel or something Adobe related, I boot into Windows at this point. It's just still so much easier and faster than, I don't know. Something about the whole emulation stuff just, gives me pause.
Well, and I think the in between for somebody like you that actually is using Premiere is poorly supported in Wine and those kinds of compatibility layers, right? Which is one of the big things you use. Like running a virtual machine that's a full ass version of Windows inside your Linux box is probably a perfectly viable way to do that. And I think we should explore that. Like, when we're back, we're on a trip next week, but when we're back, we should set that up, maybe on the desktop that you have, and give you a taste of that world.
Yeah. If people haven't noticed on this journey, there's definitely like things that scare me, and I'm sure once I get on the other side, I'll look back and be like, wow, why was I so scared about that? Like, I'm bringing up the terminal and not even flinching anymore. I'm not doing a ton of stuff in the terminal, but I mean, before I'd be like, oh man, do I really want to launch the terminal? Am I gonna break something? Now I'm like, it's fine.
Yesterday
I'm
we
throwing
were in the
out
office.
Commands and piping like a pro.
Yesterday we were in the office and I was upgrading that Ubuntu machine because it shipped an older version of Ubuntu, and you were like, just use the terminal to do this, because I was trying to get, like, they have a whole infrastructure for updating, so you don't ever have to touch the terminal. And and I was like, I don't understand. Why are there 2 update apps in this version of Ubuntu? This is ridiculous.
Yeah, no, you scroll over and there's a software and updates application, but then there's a software updater application.
Yeah,
which is very confusing. That does not make any sense. I mean, now I've understood it, but no, it's just like, okay, that doesn't. Anyway,
I'm in love with Paru. By the way, I'm like, Paru is my favorite piece of software on the Cashy machine right now.
Okay, yeah, I need to check that out, I guess.
Well, you can't, because it's a Arch only. I'm sorry.
Really?
We don't want your kind here.
Oh, because it's the ARU.
It's like the
okay. Oh, okay. Well, anyway.
Yep.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, my homework was mostly like, okay, I talked about last week, I'm in on Ubuntu.
Good job.
Look at that. Boom. First try. I will never mess it up again, except
That's
for
not
next
true.
time. Yeah. And once again, this laptop I'm using is a ThinkPad, a Lenovo ThinkPad P1 Gen7, I believe. Thank you for Lenovo for sending it over. It came pre-installed with Ubuntu, but I talked about it briefly last week. But what happened was that I noticed there were some features that were missing that I had seen in the Ubuntu install on my Samsung
Missed that
laptop.
one, by the way.
All check a mark. Let's put a little ticker up on the side. Anyway, and I was like, wait, that's weird. Is this like Lenovo adding some of their own flavor onto this? But then I quickly realized once looking at the like what was actually installed was that it came pre-configured with 22.04, I believe. And that is an older version of an LTS. So it's not even the newer LTS version. So I ended up upgrading to 24.04, I believe, is the newest LTS version, long-term support version. Because I wanted to go stable. So I did that, and then I also realized that in the process of doing that, it actually didn't install the newest kernels. And I mostly noticed that because I was looking at the drivers for this. This does have a RTX Pro 1000 dedicated GPU. I think it's like 8th generation or something. Really lightweight, discrete GPU, but enough for some acceleration and maybe even a little bit of gaming. I haven't got to it yet. But I updated the kernel successfully, and that was all through the terminal. That was great. And then I went ahead and actually did update the NVIDIA GPU driver, which at first, like if you go to the settings tab in Ubuntu, did I say right there?
You got it right that time.
Boom. Yeah. All right.
Nailed
it. And like if you go in there, or no, I guess it's in software updates. No, it's software. Man, why do they have to have two? It's software and updates. Yes, there it is.
It's just a really weird choice.
Updates. Yeah, it's really weird. Anyway, there's a tab for additional drivers, which is where the NVIDIA GPU like driver package lands, and there's a whole list of them. Maybe I'll take a screenshot just so people can see. And at first it was very like confusing to me because it's like, oh, do you want to use this driver package or this open kernel or meta package? And there's other words like proprietary or open or things like that. And I was like, I don't know. But luckily there was, and man, I should have wrote this down, but through the course of this, I looked up some terminal commands and was able to find the device ID. So be like, okay, what is the device in there? It listed it out. And then you could also list out the drivers. And one of the drivers says recommended, like right in terminal. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. Then that's the one I want to pick. At least
was it the open one or the closed one?
It was open, yeah.
Okay.
By default, this actually had one that said it was pre-installed by Lenovo. Mm-hmm. So maybe I made a bad choice, but I don't know. It recommended one to me, so I'm gonna assume that the recommended one was the one that I should be running. And yeah, so I updated it all. I felt pretty good about it,
and it works.
And then as I was poking around in the software and updates application, there's a tab for, I think it was either an Ubuntu software or other software. There was like a little check mark of like where to get your updates. Oh, I think it was other software where they kind of list out like, oh, okay, where are you actually grabbing these packages from? And there's one check mark that was not installed. And I should have taken a photo of it. I can't see it anymore because I've fixed the problem. But I was like, oh, well, why not just check mark all these boxes? So I check marked that box, and all of a sudden I couldn't get updates. Like I would go and like run an update thing, and they were like, "Nah, dog, the thing's broken. We can't do it." And I was like, "Oh no!" And then I even went to the terminal and tried to do sudo apt update, and it was like, "Nah, dog, we can't. This is broken." And I was like, "Oh no! I think I broke it. I don't think there's a way back from it." I do have a link that I will share in the show notes because I have it in Notion. But I ended up finding what the issue was and luckily somebody had it on Reddit. The thing that I was getting was the source file, the list of sources could not be read was the error that I was getting, and I was like, I don't even know what that means. Luckily, in this article, somebody had that same issue, and there was some great people in there who said how to fix it. Was essentially just saying, hey, you know what, like, what list should you pull from? Don't pull from that thing that I accidentally checked. Not only that, then it also said, here's how you get the official list that you should be pulling from. I'm sorry, I'm not describing it well.
No.
It's just what that was the problem I ran into.
Okay, so I got clarification on why there are 2 software update apps on that version of Ubuntu also.
Oh, okay.
Software Updater, but it's worth mentioning both of these have virtually identical icons too.
Yeah, it's like a gear.
Yeah, with an A in the middle, right?
Yeah.
So Software Updater looks for and updates apps on your system. That's the thing that actually does the app updating. Software and Updates, a completely distinct and very clearly labeled app, is how you control where the apps and updates come from, and it also is where the additional drivers are found for video and audio apps that probably are not GPL'd or open source, so they're not part of the main repositories. So what you did was probably say, hey, go get apps from a bunch of repositories that it couldn't find then, or were out of date or just not available. And then when you ran apt update, it was like, man, I got nothing here.
Yeah, it definitely, like, that was, I mean, luckily, and I've been saying this to a lot of newbies like myself, the great thing is that as scared as I was, I also knew, like, hey, listen, it's so easy to just nuke and start again. I'm not super invested in anything yet. So like I knew that was an option, but I was like, you know what? I want to try to get through this. I think friend of the show, Brad Shoemaker from Nextlander, I saw him in the physical flesh a couple weeks ago, and he was definitely giving the advice of, like, don't just run the command, try to see like what the command is doing or understanding what things are doing. And I was like, okay, I'm not just gonna nuke from orbit and try again because I messed something up. Let me see if I can understand why. And yeah, luckily, I mean, this one, even though it was kind of complex and it didn't make sense to me why it broke, like, once I got into it, I was like, oh, okay, it's trying to pull updates from something that it can't pull updates from. How do I then tell it to not look at that to pull updates from? And yeah, I came out on the other side.
Well, the other thing that's good about all this too is that, unlike Windows, where like the settings for where it gets updates are buried in the registry someplace or hard coded to a URL that Microsoft owns, there's a file in your file system called sources.list that just is a text file with all the repos that it pulls from. So worst case, even if you can't boot into KDE, into the desktop, you can go to the terminal, you can CD to that folder, you can sudo nano sources.list and edit, remove the offending entries yourself and be back in business, right? Like, it's kind of amazing.
Well, and yeah, that's part of what I had to do is edit a text file in the terminal window.
Wild.
So yeah, that was crazy. Look at that. So okay, so hit a little snag, but that's good. The other thing, I was actually talking with our fine folks over on Discord. There's a link in the description to the Fullner Discord if you want to go talk to people. There's a Linux channel where the most of the Linux talk is happening, but then there's also a questions channel where you just put questions that we'll talk about on the show here. And one of the things that has been a discussion for the past, I guess, week since I messed around with it was I was trying to understand the whole difference between X11 and Wayland, and like, because I feel like I'm understanding the difference between a desktop environments, right? Like we've talked about GNOME and KDE, but then I still don't fully have my head wrapped around like the way then everything is drawn. That's when you're talking about like X11 and Wayland,
so
things like that.
You probably weren't using Windows when Microsoft switched from GDI, which was the way they drew Windows in like Windows 3.1 and Windows 95, to WDM, which happened, I think, in Windows. It was either Windows 7 or Windows Vista. I can't remember. I think it was Windows Vista, probably. That was why Vista sucked. Oh. But it's basically they just changed the backend model, the APIs that they use for, like, it's different software that's drawing the window. That's all. That's the main thing you need to know, right?
And the thing that we've gotten deeper into is that, so this laptop was like, I ran the command to see what it was running, and it came back with X11. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, is there a way to change that, or what does that mean? And the other thing too is that usually on the distro, on the login screen, you can see something that will say, hey, when you log in, do you want to have everything run on, Wayland or whatever, different options that you have available to it. And there was nothing on my log screen. So like it was a couple things. It was like, oh, okay, well, why isn't it showing up on the log screen? And I'm sorry, I can't remember who helped me on Discord, but they were like, oh, run this command to have it show up. And then I saw it show up and all that kind of stuff. But from what I understand, like, and yeah, this is definitely getting deeper into the weeds than like a desktop environment kind of thing. And I feel like entry level people like myself don't need to know this. This is like real in the weeds stuff, but it is kind of interesting where it's like X11 or Xorg, whatever, like I guess that's like an evolutionary dead end, and Wayland is kind of the future.
People have really strong feelings about this, Adam.
Yeah, no, it was weird. Like there was definitely way deeper stuff than I understood, but also once again, like I don't think you need to understand it. It's just curious to see like how deep that rabbit hole goes. So
on my side, I think Wayland is the default on the cachy stuff for the desktop managers that they support, or desktop environments that support Wayland. Like my KDE Plasma install was using Wayland, and I feel like GNOME was running Wayland, but maybe it's running its own thing. I can't remember. I think your instinct is good here, though, right? I think like if things are working for you and you're not having problems running the things that you want to run, defaults are fine. When you get to a point later on that you care about this, you can investigate more. But for right now, like it's fine to not worry about it.
I mean, also it sounds like it's up to the distro manager at that point to say, hey, you know what, if the next version of, or the next LTS version of Ubuntu switches from X11 to Wayland, then like they need to do that work. Because at first I was like, well, should I try to do that work? And I was like, nah, I like it doesn't see like, yes, maybe X11 is a evolutionary dead end, but it doesn't mean I need to do anything right now to like change it. I'm gonna leave the distro provider to do that.
And also, when Cachy moved from Xorg to Wayland, there's a big giant note in all the install docs that are like, hey, if you are running this version of this and you're running Xorg still, when you do your next system update, it's going to break your window manager. So here's what you need to do to unbreak that, right? Once that happens. And like, so this is why I generally choose the defaults on Linux stuff, at least for where I am right now.
Yeah. Well, and once again, it like as I'm trying to learn this stuff, I'm also keeping an eye towards helping other people go on this journey as well. And like I think I've definitely hit that window of like, okay, here's how you understand what Linux is. It's a kernel, and then the next level is the different distros, and then the next level is desktop environments. And then under that is these kind of things. I'm like, okay, well that's too deep. Yes, I do think a very basic person needs to kind of understand like those top three ones. I think other than a desktop manager or desktop environment, you don't even, and honestly, like to a certain degree, understanding the desktop environments is probably, that's more of like a taste thing. Like, okay, which one do you want to try? Do you need to understand the differences between all of them? Or like how, like Pop OS is coming out with Cosmic soon, or, like, no, you don't need to understand that. Just use one, one kind of looks like Mac-ish, one kind of looks like Windows-ish. You can change them. You can customize them, whatever.
That's exactly it.
So, anyway, so yeah, like, and I mean, really the end thing of this too is that like, I was like, okay, sweet. I'm all in on Ubuntu. I've got the this laptop. I'm gonna watch a ton of videos. People recommended really cool videos to watch, and I came across this one video that was like, hey, here's the 25 things you need to do after a fresh Ubuntu install, and I was like, oh sweet, I'm gonna get some great stuff, and there was actually some good stuff in there. Some of it was like, nah, but there was some good stuff in there. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Change my DNS server so that it'll the web pages will load faster and things like that. And I was like, at some point I was like, wait, okay, I don't want to overdo it. Like, like just use it until you want to try to do something different, or if something bugs you, and then try to maybe go on it. Like I was being a little too proactive of like, oh sweet, I can change this, but they weren't even problems for me. It's just like, I was watching some videos that were like, oh, you should do this. But yeah, so like I was like, okay, no, I'll step back, relax. Look, it's okay. I don't need to overdo it.
You can get too far in the weeds and make yourself a little crazy here if you're not careful. But also, why? Nothing wrong with experimenting, Adam.
Well, yeah. Well, and once again, experimenting, I feel like there's enough things that I've to quote unquote fix. I feel like that I'm like, oh, okay, this is something that I actively need to look into, like the Winboat stuff, or installing Notion, or things like that, backup utilities, that I should just focus on those first rather than trying to overcomplicate something. Because the other thing too is that like the more I complicate it, the more I won't remember, and I'm actually not good at documentation. I know you told me to always
gotta always write it down.
Documentation, but the last thing I will say that I know a lot of people have said that I need to look into, but was backup utilities. So there's one that like everybody recommends, and now I can't remember the name of it.
Snapper?
No.
Oh, I installed Snapper.
I can't remember the backup utility, and I had messed around with it a couple weeks ago on a different. It was when I was trying to do cache on this HP laptop, and I mean, yeah, it wiped, so I didn't end up using it. It was like some time backup thing. I can't remember. People know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
But then
does it just copy your home folder to a NAS folder or something?
I mean, you could pick where you want it, but it's essentially a snapshot of like, oh, hey, you know what? Like roll back to a different snapshot. How often does it? Gotcha. Do you want it to snapshot? What do you want it to snapshot? I was going to load that, and then lo and behold, built into Ubuntu, I got a notification the other day that was like, hey, we have a backup utility, which the actual application in here I think is just called backups. Let me look. Came pre-installed. Yes, the application is called backups, and the little icon has a vault. And I was like, oh, you know what? That's cool that they actually said, hey, you should be backing up your machine. Here, we have a little tool for that. And I ran through it, and it was stupid simple. Once again, it was like, okay, what do you want to take a snapshot of? How often do you want to take a snapshot? Where do you want it to be located? How long do you want us to locate it? It actually was able to integrate with Google Drive, and essentially do a snapshot there as well. So there's an online backup, and I was like, I'm going to roll with this. Like it's built in. Maybe people have problems with it, but that's I want to try it out. And honestly, the last thing I want to talk about homework wise is that there has been some chatter about me picking Ubuntu. Like not a ton of negativity, but
they call you basic.
Well, they were like, it's easy mode, which I'm okay with. I play games on easy, actually. Come at me.
He really does. It's gross.
Yeah, because I want to enjoy my gaming.
Baby mode.
And so, like, I don't know. I mean, there was that. Most of the people have been actually very supportive and glad that I have picked a distro. But then there has been, like, I think, man, maybe it was Brad. I can't remember, but it was just like, ew, I don't like how they're forcing snaps down their throats. And I was just like, wait, what's a snap?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah. And sure, I read into it. I understand, like, hey, Ubuntu has a way of packaging stuff that there is proprietary. It sounds like Snap is
I think it's just been implemented by them, is the proprietariness here, not actual proprietary.
And at least according to Brad and some other people, maybe I'm getting this wrong, is that like if you go to the terminal and you go, sudo apt install Slack, whatever, I don't know, whatever application you're trying to install, rather than grabbing it from the repository that you are trying to grab it from, it'll interject and actually install the snapped version or the snap version without telling you.
Oh, that sucks.
I don't know. I don't know. Like I get it, and Yeah. So people have a lot of like hard feelings about this, but I also feel like there are people like Brad who like, I don't want to say this word like a purist, but I get it. You know, like, hey, that's one of the things you like about Linux is that it's you know, you get control of your experience. And especially if they're doing something like this where you think you're installing it one way, but they're actually installing the snap version just because they want to push that is crappy. But also at the same time, like, I'm just trying to learn. And so like, I haven't run into anything where I'm like, oh, it's not working the way I want it to. And maybe in the background it installed the snap version when it should have pulled it from somewhere else. But like, I don't know. I haven't run into any of the implication stuff. I think this might be just like a, I can't think of the right word, but like a, you know, this is.
Well, it's like a
philosophy.
A
you know what I mean? Like a philosophical thing where it's like, you know, like I don't like the philosophy of it. I'm not there yet. I don't like, I understand it to some degree, but it's not bugging me. So
I wanted to kind of talk about this a little bit, because I think like this is one of the things that I'm struggling with a little bit too right now. Is it's hard to know, coming into Linux and not being super aware of where the lines of demarcation in the battles that people have been yelling about each other on the internet for the last 20 years. Yeah. Like, it's hard to know when something is a real problem, right? Like, people who say don't use the Arch Linux user repository because people are packaging things up and they could dump malware into those packages that are essentially repackaged files or apps from other systems, right?
I mean, that doesn't sound good. No,
that does sound bad. It is a real problem. On the other hand, would I be like, am I going to be happy? Like, am I going to be able to do this without having a version of Slack that gives me desktop notifications instead of browser notifications? Probably not. So sometimes you have to take the good with the bad. Is it bad to run Ubuntu because it's the basic easy mode thing? I actually don't think so, because the one huge benefit of running Ubuntu or Fedora or one of the other really popular distros is that when you go to the Slack webpage and you click the download Linux version, it gives you a Ubuntu DEB file that you can just click and install, and you don't have to go through things like the AUR and look at the install scripts to make sure they're not putting a bunch of nonsense in. So like knowing enough to know when those complaints that people have are theoretical and something that like are philosophically bad versus actually bad is really hard for me right now. And it's something I've definitely been struggling with. And I'm spending a lot more time reading about stuff than I kind of anticipated to figure out where those lines of demarcation are.
Well, and on top of it too, like it's a wild swing from the Windows side. It's like,
yeah,
I mean, do you want this Windows update? Well, you don't get a choice. You know, you can postpone updates, but you know, you have to take this update. Or even worse on the Mac side, right? That's the thing that we always yell about. You know, the walled garden is like, oh, you don't like it how we do it? Well, then
get wrecked.
Yeah, because this is how we do it, kind of thing. But because of, you know, we have more control over it, then we have a tighter integration and experience and kind of stuff. So like, and I feel like Linux is on the other end of it, where they're like, hey, you know what? Don't try to control us at all. We want to have full control over how we do stuff. And from what I understand a little bit is that Ubuntu is trying to go a little bit in the direction of, you know, like a little more of a it's not a fully walled garden, but, you know, like we actually want to have control over some of this stuff. Like, it doesn't feel egregious to me at this point.
I think it's. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I think it's more that instead of saying, "Hey, I want to have control over this," they're saying, "I don't think most users want to manage this," right? Which are it's two sides of the same coin. But there are a lot of users out there who don't want to have to manage where their system updates come from, right? They just want to get them from the people that make the OS. And while you can absolutely change that, and like it's a time-honored way to install a different version of the same descendant of Linux is to just change your sources directory and then do a system update and pull all the new ones down and then reboot, and all of a sudden you go from running Debian to Ubuntu, which like that seems unwise at this point, but whatever. Like, they let you do that, but like, should you be doing that? Should I be doing that? Probably not. I don't think so. At least not right now.
I mean, at this point, I'm still just running with the basics of like, okay, you know, how do I get the apps installed? How do I back up? You know, like even like the audio stuff, plugging in this Motu, I was just like, oh, is this going to even just work? I don't, how does that look in the settings? And it's definitely like showing different things than I would see in Windows. So yeah.
Every time I run an update on my laptop and reboot, I'm excited when the window manager comes back up, right? I'm like, oh yeah, okay, didn't muck it up this time. Let's go.
Yeah. No, but I do appreciate seeing a lot of the chatter in our Linux channel, because a lot of it is just going over my head, and it's people who have been using Linux for a long time. But also, we have been getting a lot of new users who are popping in and are like, hey, you know what? I installed my first distro a couple months ago. I'm doing the same exact thing. And like everyone has been like super awesome. And just to be clear or be open about it, one of the things I was worried about going into this, and we talked about this before, I was like, man, do we really want to start a podcast about Linux? I am so worried that like the Linux community is just gonna like all of a sudden the vultures are gonna come down on us and like
bunch of neckbeards coming out.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of headache. But luckily, I shouldn't have felt that way, because I have a feeling, or the way I think about building communities is that the kind of content you make builds the communities that will follow.
Yeah.
Like that, yes, there will be occasionally people who pop in and they, add some negativity or whatever. But really, like the way that we do content and being earnest about our journey here too is that we're not trying to be experts. We're literally sharing our experiences, and we have garnered a community so far that has been super supportive and feeling the same way as us, and like not judgy, and like not at all what I was worried about. So I appreciate everyone out there. It's a long way of saying that I appreciate all of you.
It's been really nice, and like I don't feel bad asking questions. Like I don't ever post on Linux message boards because I don't want to get somebody telling me I didn't provide everything that they needed to get help or whatever. I will say, I think Jan, who's one of the new folks that's joined in the last week or two, posted a like simpler version of the man page app that like does simplifications, because the man page app, basically you type man and then the Linux command, and it gives you like 4,000 words about every possible thing you could do with that application. But realistically,
it's short for manual.
Manual, right? Yeah. Realistically, you want like two things, right? You want to know like what the most common use of that application. Like if you want the tool that lets you list all the USB devices, you just want like what's the stripped down version of that, not what's the how to reboot the third thing on the list or whatever. Yeah. And I unfortunately can't find it right now because it's like a week and a half back. But stuff like that has been really incredibly useful, which is delightful and incredibly helpful. Like where people are sharing hard-won information in the channel, and I'm here for it. I gotta say, like there's a thing I've noticed over the last week or two, which is that things that I'm used to ignoring on Windows and just turning off because they suck are great here. Like system level notifications are actually useful because they're infrequent and they only actually ping me with something when it's important. Like my calendar app pings me. When I have an update that needs to install, it pings me. And when I get a Slack message added at me, it pings me. The defaults are really good on that stuff in a way that they often aren't on Windows and phone apps and stuff like that. Everything defaults to don't launch on login, partly because I think most of the window managers just restore your state where it was when you reboot. So it's like you didn't reboot the computer. But partly because they assume if you wanted to launch it on a login, you'll check the app rather than doing the inverse, which is assuming everybody wants everything started all the time.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's definitely like one of my Windows tips. Like if I were to make like, hey, here's a fresh new install of Windows, here's the things that I do like on that fresh new install. And one of them is 100% to manage the apps that launch by default, because I think most normal people do not, and that's one of the problems that can slow down a computer without people realizing it. Yeah, here I don't even know. Like even if I wanted to manage that, I can't even find a place to do that. Like because it just defaults to, at least on what I've been using, is like nah dog. We just load you in,
Yeah.
What do you want to do? Like nothing is running by default. No Teams is launching, no Copilot. Nothing is just launching by default, and it does feel fresh. I will say the one thing that is weird about the notifications for me, and I don't know how to configure this. I'm not seeing anywhere, so maybe people can help me with this one. Is that I'll hit the notification and it hits up in the top middle is the way I have it configured. But it's not on a timer. Like the notification will hold there until I dismiss it. And I actually don't like that. I can't find a quick, easy way to like say, you know what, like pop and hold for 5 seconds. And if I don't address it, go away. That's the only, I would love some help with that.
I learned, so on KDE, there's a thing that says hide after 10 seconds. So you can change that to be variable. I learned that you can place the notifications wherever you want. So like when I moved my taskbar, when I shrunk my taskbar to be more dockish, my notifications ended up popping up like 2/3 of the way across the screen at the bottom, which was really weird. And then I opened it up and I just moved the widget that does the notifications. And also I realized that I could have multiples of those if I wanted. So I could have like 20 notifications that pop up all across the screen, which is terrible. It's really bad, but it was very funny. So
can you have it like ping like the old Windows
like have it move,
screen.
like bounce around, like the DVD logo?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's terrible. I'm sure somebody's done that.
That would be hilarious.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, I think we're getting into homework territory for next week. Yeah. So like notifications, I would love some help with that. I'm having this weird thing where on certain pages in Google Chrome, the fonts are resolving really weird. It's not using the default typeface set. And I don't know, like I don't know typefaces, but I know it's weird and like they're very offset and just it doesn't look normal, and I don't know where to manage that because it's only certain pages. It's not everything, and I don't know if this is a Linux thing or a Chrome thing or that one's a little weird.
Do you know if you're using hardware rendering in Chrome?
I mean, I assumed it defaulted to on. So
I don't know that it does.
On
Linux.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, post in the Discord, I guess.
Yeah. Another one that's weird for me is that whenever I launch an application, like it was previously closed or I rebooted or something, and it wasn't already in full screen mode, it always launches in the top left corner, and I don't know how to change it. Like it's not a horrible thing, but it's also not a behavior that I appreciate. So like, I mean, I've never had to think about it. Like I guess Windows have usually, like some of them, like Discord usually launches in the last place that I had it. So maybe it's like the different versions. Maybe I have the version installed that like doesn't replace where the window goes. But like one of the things I loaded, which I like, is because if you remember from early episodes, I like seeing what my system is doing at all times. So Mission Center is awesome because it looks literally like Task Manager in Windows. So I pretty much always have that open. And that one I did install from the command line, sudo apt install Mission Center, after doing I think it was a Flatpak version. Oh, maybe that's... No. I got this one from the App Store in Ubuntu.
Okay.
The App Center, I'm sorry. And yeah, that one always launches in the top left corner. Like the size of the window is the same. It just the placement launches in the top corner, which has been weird. I don't. Once again, it's one of those things where I'm like, is this the Ubuntu thing? Is this a GNOME thing? Like, and there's nothing in the settings that I am seeing by default that says, oh, where do you want it to launch? So that one's weird. If I can get help, that would awesome. I installed Slack on this laptop, and every time I restart Slack, and I installed Slack off of their website, they did have a .deb install package, and every time I have to re-sign in.
I wonder if you have to give it permission to use the wallet. So Pam is the password something manager, I guess, application manager. I don't know. I had to explicitly say that some stuff was able to use my Windows Hello camera to log in.
Interesting.
And I wonder if you have to do that to make that work. But I don't know. That's a guess on that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, speaking of login stuff, I ran into something that maybe is what's similar to you had, where the whole like password key manager thing is.
For the key ring. Yeah.
Every time I launch Chrome after a reboot, it has me put in my admin password. It's like, you didn't. I can't remember what the notification is. I can't replicate it right now.
Login keyring did not unlock.
Yes,
is that one?
Exactly. Yeah. So, like, what is that?
I wonder if they're doing something. I wonder if you have to explicitly allow access to the keyring for certain apps, and I wonder if there's security implications for that. I wonder if it gives them access to the whole thing or not. Like I don't. I'm going to learn more about how the keyring, how the key password manager built into KDE works on my list for this week.
Because there is a built-in key thing in Ubuntu as well. Speaking of security, my last thing is that. So we're about to go on a trip. Will and I are doing our first travel together. I don't think we can talk about where we're going yet, but I'm also connecting with my security friend, Mike Dansiglio. I want to sit down and I actually want to do a recording with him. He's awesome.
I'm shaking. He's famous because he shakes his head. He's like, no, don't do that. He just tells you no. It's a bad idea.
In the Discord, we have a GIF of him saying hard no.
Hard no.
I love Mikey. He's a longtime Linux person. Specifically, Kali Linux.
Well,
his distro.
He runs other stuff too, I think. If I remember right.
He does. Yeah. But he's CH certified ethical hacker, CISSP. He is a security professional. Has been for a long time. Actually, used to work at Microsoft. You might know him from UAC. He's one of the creators of that. So you can tell him that sucks. A lot of people do. But I want to sit down with him and just have a conversation about not only Linux, because I have Linux questions for him, but especially security around Linux, because we've talked to him on the Full Nerd. If you follow the Full Nerd, he's been on that, and we've talked a lot about Windows security stuff. But this is a chance to talk about Linux security stuff specifically. So I will be recording something with me and him in the future. And if you have questions for him, maybe I'll make a thread or some sort of forum post or something so people can go in there and have a bunch of questions for a security professional to ask. So
can I ask questions too? Am I allowed?
I mean, Mikey doesn't like you, so
I know.
So I don't know.
He likes everything except for me.
Except for you. What about your homework?
So
what are you gonna be working on?
So I have 3 SSDs in a Windows storage space that are used for game engine and Steam install and stuff like that on my Windows side. Mm-hmm. And I think I did 400 gigs or something for home folder and cache install on the desktop. And I immediately filled the 300 gigs that's for the home folder with other stuff. So I'm going to move one of those SSDs from Windows to Linux. And I think I'm going to try to do the thing that everybody says is a questionable idea, where I put a file system on there that both OSs understand and share the Steam install folder between the two machines.
Actually, we did get this question on Discord. I do want to point this out real quick. FGTFV567.
Rolls off the tongue.
Great username, yeah. It says, I plan on dual booting Nobara and Windows 11 on the same drive. I want to add additional storage drives to the desktop to save games to. But I would like to have both OSs play the same games off the same drive. Can this be done?
It seems like it's doable. I haven't tried it yet. There are 2 different ways to do it. One is that you install an NTFS drive, which the storage space complicates things because it's basically saving the data across multiple drives, kind of like a software RAID array, but not exactly. The benefit of doing the other way, where you put it on just a single NTFS drive, is that Linux understands NTFS and can write NTFS. The other thing you can do is you can install a Btrfs driver in Windows and then just put it on a normal Btrfs partition. I don't know what the recommended, what the stable, good alternative and what the consequences of doing it one way or the other are. Because I know that
always be testing.
Exactly. And NTFS supports a little hinky on Linux. On Linux is my understanding, and at the same time, Btrfs support is a little hinky on Windows. So I got to decide what my, what my best case is here. So I want to try running some Windows apps on Linux. I'm going to try WinApps. I'm going to try your WinBoat thing. And see what the better alternatives are. At the same time, I also need to get Resolve going. It has a lot of weird dependencies and it's kind of a pain in the butt, but I can figure that out. I just need to get there. And then people sent me a million ways to export my package list from the laptop to the desktop last week. Like literally like 15 people sent me different, and I think all of them were different, but maybe not. I ended up just doing it from scratch, so I didn't actually do that bit, but at some point I want to figure that out. And then the last thing is I turned on Snapper support last week or the week before. Snapper lets you do snapshots on the system, on the drive, like inside as part of the file system.
Oh, okay.
So that like, and the OS is automatically now configured to do snapshots like when I do a system update or something like that. So if an update goes bad, I can just roll back to the previous snapshot and I'll be back in business. Beyond turning it on, I haven't taken any time to learn how it works. So I want to learn more about how that works and do some experimenting, because I'm looking at, I got a cache update for some stuff that looks a little scary, and I want to do that. And then the last thing is to fix up my Stream Deck buttons rather, so that I have full parity between Windows and Linux on the Stream Deck side. So
nice.
Yeah.
All right. I before we get out of here, I do want to ask one more question, just because I'm very curious and I have no idea what the answer is. So I think you do. Is that user Alexandriite over on our Discord, friend of the show, asks, what's the state of BSD on desktop? Would you ever consider dual booting into free or open BSD? Number one, I've heard that of BSD. I don't know what it is. Can you please explain? Number two, would you ever do that?
Yeah, so BSD is another Nix. It's more Unixy than Linux is the simple way I think to explain it.
Wait, does Nix stand for something?
No, I don't think so.
So it's like a distro? So it's like a distro?
Yeah, but it's not. It's based on a different kernel. It's based on a BSD kernel instead of a Linux kernel. But a lot of the stuff is the same. There's some different metaphors for the way things work. For example, in BSD distros, you can do these things called jails, which basically give a fix. It's almost like a flat pack or a Docker container or something like that, where you have a controlled state of the machine that's isolated from the rest of the machine. So you can run like web applications or something like that inside a kind of container that's really, really performance light compared to, say, a VM or a Docker container. Okay. It's also really, really lightly supported compared to Linux. So while there are millions and millions and millions of people running Linux, there are a lot fewer people running BSD. And as a result, support for things like hardware is slower. And like I've run BSD servers before. I ran TrueNAS for a long time.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, I feel like that's usually the context, is that it's some sort of NAS.
Yeah, so for a long, long time, FreeNAS, which is now I think called TrueNAS, was based on BSD, and mainly because the file system that they used, ZFS, was only a BSD thing for a long, long time. They've since migrated to Linux as a like infrastructure. So it's TrueNAS is now. I guess you can still probably download a BSD version, but the newer versions and the recommended path is to install the Linux version, because they ported ZFS to Linux and everything's easier on that side. I think BSD is really interesting. I'm not going to try to run a BSD desktop in 2025.
I mean, can you?
I'm sure you can.
Oh.
You can do all sorts of things. It doesn't mean it's a good idea, Adam.
This sounds like something that maybe Brad Shoemaker would do.
Brad has moved his because he was a TrueNAS, FreeNAS guy too. That's why we started doing the tech pod together. Yeah. And he's moved off onto the Linux version as of a couple of years ago, as I recall. Okay. So yeah, it's like BSD is really neat. I think it's fantastic for servers and command line stuff. The kind of hardware I run on the desktop is not, and like I can't imagine what laptop support is like on BSD. I'm sure it's a nightmare. If you think it's hard finding like a version of Notion or Slack or Discord or something that runs on your Linux machine, man, do I have an OS for you.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I thank you for explaining that. That sounds like even though what we always say here is always be testing, that's not something you want to be testing.
Look, if we get to 2 years of this and we're stretching for things to do, I'm gonna switch to a Linux BSD dual boot, and then we do a whole new season of the show. That's
new series.
Phase 2.
There we go.
Whole new series.
BSD Diaries.
Dual Boot Diaries to Dual Boot Harder.
Into BSD.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, I like that.
And then we'll run Haiku on top of that, which is like a BOS, modern reinterpretation of BOS. That's the 3rd season.
Yeah, there we go. Oh man,
And
you're
then
already
the 4th,
playing this stuff.
the 4th season is I don't know. We're running Sun. I don't know what the 4th season is, but things are bad.
Well, yeah. Last thing I want to bring up, which is not really a question, but somebody put it in there because we talked about it a lot. Not Samar said, for the final challenge, I want you to share an idea, a timed challenge to start from scratch to build your own version of the ideal Linux desktop with a final guest boss of Wendell from Mobile Text. And we were talking about this, like, man, that would be the final boss. If there's a final boss, when to bring Wendell on, he would be the final boss of this podcast. So yeah, maybe that is the very last episode. We have Wendell come on and we either do a challenge or we have him delete the partition.
We put him down in front of the laptops and he's like, "Yes, you're ready, my son." And then blesses the laptop as he deletes the Windows RM/RF or RM space RF the Windows partition. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, because I think I said this the other day when we ran into something. I was just like, what if we just called Wendell? I just assume Wendell knows everything.
Somebody asked in the Discord, like, if we were actually serious about deleting the Windows partitions and like if that's going to be permanent, if we're never going to go back to Windows or whatever. And like realistically, I play Fortnite 2 or 3 nights a week with friends, so I'm not going away from Windows anytime soon because I'm stuck playing Fortnite unless Tim Epic changes his mind about supporting the Steam Deck.
Yeah, and I did respond to them, but yeah, good. Thank you for bringing that up because I forgot to bring that up as well. Like yes, the whole precipice of this series is trying it out. It's called dual booting, and then theoretically, at the end, we're both ready to delete one of the partitions and move on. But that I don't think that means that we'll write the other one off forever. Either we'll need one, or maybe if I just say, I'm going back to Windows, but I'll still experiment with Linux here and there. I don't know, honestly. Like, partially it is a little bit of tongue in cheek, but partially it is like, no, we're trying to really learn and commit to using this stuff. So that's how we're couching this conversation. But by no means does this mean like we'll write anything off forever.
Well, and like, I think there's much more. The real world isn't quite as black and white, right? There's shades of gray. Like, I have 2 computers on my desk, and one of them, like my stream machine, is a perfect candidate for a Linux machine, right? It basically runs OBS,
like full-time Linux,
a chat bot, and like Discord, and that's it. That's pretty much all that I ever run on it. It powers up. I run the stream. When the stream's over, it uploads clips, and it closes that file, and it shuts down, and that's all I do with it. It's a great candidate for like a Linux kind of appliance type machine. And the desktop stuff, especially given the job that we do as journalists, is harder, right? Because we have to be able to test stuff. And if people send us hardware that doesn't run in Windows, we have to be able to, doesn't run in Linux. We have to be able to test the Windows version. Realistically, we shouldn't be doing only Linux reviews. We're not Phoronix over here. It's PCWorld.
There's no world where at the end of this, neither of us stop touching Windows in any capacity, because like no matter what, it's part of our jobs.
But I think it's really realistic that like my laptop becomes a Linux machine going forward, right? Like that seems and honestly very practical, that's actually.
Like between my laptop and desktop, like I would love for one of those to be that, or both of those. Like I don't know, like it feels weird right now to even think of that, but like I could see a future where like one or both of them are Linux. I don't know. So
there's a thing I want to talk about it maybe more next week or the week after, but there's a thing I've been feeling right now where I'm getting confident enough in my Linux use that like it's hard for me to like, I'm feeling a consistent, strong bias toward novelty and new and different as better, which is, I think, a good thing. That means things are going well. I'm having a hard time telling when something is better or worse than Windows, though. Like, because of that bias toward novelty. And
we talked about this a little bit last week.
Yeah, I'm also having a hard time telling whether something's janky in Linux or whether I've just not set it up quite right, or whether it's just different from what I expect because it's different than the metaphors are different than they are in Windows. And I want to talk about it more. I'm going to look for some more examples, but like the first thing I think about is that in KDE, I have two monitors on this desktop PC, and there's no good way to tell KDE to always play full screen games on the monitor that's my gaming monitor versus the monitor that's my other monitor.
Really?
Yeah, and so sometimes games launch up top, sometimes they launch up top and then immediately move down to the bottom. Sometimes I have to move them manually. It's really weird, and I don't have a good handle on why it's doing that. Other than I found a forum post that was like, yeah, I just kept moving cables around until the one that I wanted to be the gaming monitor was the first one in the chain, and I was like, oh, I mean, okay, so yes. Is that possible that will fix the problem? Yes. Is that very, very stupid? Also, yes. So I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, weird.
Is that janky or is that just because I don't have it set up right? I don't know. So,
or is that a feature, not a bug? You know?
Yeah.
Who knows? Well, yeah. Okay. Keep coming along with us on this journey. Appreciate everybody. Appreciate you, Will.
I appreciate you, Adam.
And I'm very, even though this trip that we're going on is not going to be as intense as me going to Germany, we will be bringing our Linux laptops. We will be doing another episode from the road, and not only do we have special guest lined up with Mike Dinsiglu, the security expert, we are actually also recording a special episode with the founder of Framework. Nirav Patel, who is a hardcore Linux person by all accounts that I can tell, and yeah, so we're continuing on this journey. I appreciate everybody. Tune in next week for the next episode of our diary.
Hey, and congrats on our first 100% Linux episode.
Woohoo! Well, hopefully, we got to wait until it gets through the edit. Maybe Alex edits this and he's like, "It's broken. We got to redo it."
Yeah, you guys jack this up. You have to do it again. Fake it.
Yeah. Then it'd be like, okay, take 2, go.
See y'all next week.
I mean, why not? Like, who doesn't poop in a sock?